Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast. We just got done watching UFC Vancouver between Brendan Allen and RDR. It was a very entertaining card, but everyone's picks sucked on this card. A lot of people either went 6-7 or 7-6. So, like I know MMA Guru went 7-6, and then a bunch of people I'm close with in the MMA community also went around those same record predictions. So, very hard card to predict fights for, but we got a few sleeper picks in. Our big underdog pick from Bruno Silva cash, so that was nice. But we're gonna talk about our entire review of the card, and then we're gonna go into the fights I would give for the main winners of the card. But starting off, Melissa Croden went in and won in Canada against Tainara Lisboa. This one surprised me. I picked Lisboa, and I didn't think Croden was gonna be that good of a fighter. If I'm being honest. I watched her fights in other promotions, and she just did not look good. Lisboa was the more technical fighter, or at least I thought, but she could not take down Croden to save her life, and she was getting pieced up on the feet by Melissa Croden. So Croden was able to get the knockout in the later rounds. Yeah, she actually really surprised me. She was able to stop the takedowns of Lisboa, and then her striking was actually doing really well against Lisboa, and she was dominating the fight. So Melissa Croden gets her UFC debut win, and she proved me wrong. So I started off card 0-1. Moving up, this one was probably the parlay breaker. A lot of people were picking Azamat Bakov to be the lock of the week. I did not because I wasn't really sold on him. I still picked him to win the fight, though, because I thought Yusri Belgaruri was not going to be that good of a fighter because he was a conservative kickboxer. Well, in this fight, he freaking destroyed Azamat Bakov. He came out a little bit more aggressively, which apparently that was his plan, which is a very smart plan against Bakov. Bakov has very powerful punches, but you can wear him down with aggression, and that's what Yusri Belgaruri did. He did get hit a few times that looked like it stunned him a little, but overall, he definitely won this very convincingly. Ended up getting the finish in the third round as well, so he got a TKO win, and that is his first win in the UFC. So they're probably going to push him just because he was in Glory Kickboxing with Piera and Adesanya, but Azamat Bakov just lost all of his hype, and now Yusri Belgaruri is going to get hyped like crazy, and we will be talking about his next fight and who I think it should be, but we're going to talk about the rest of these predictions first, or the review of the card, excuse me. Next up, our first pick of the day that was right, Stephanie Luciano. She got the win over Ravena Oliveira. Another easy pick for me. Stephanie Luciano dominated Oliveira the entire fight. She ended up getting the submission in the third round. Watching Ravena Oliveira's fights, she just looks like, I don't know. So she looked kind of crazy in the other promotions before she came to the UFC, where she was just going in for the kill every single time, but she wasn't really knocking anyone out. So I didn't think she had the knockout power in this fight, and I knew that Stephanie Luciano could be the more technical and more balanced fighter, and that's exactly what was happening here. Luciano was landing more on the feet, and then she was also able to take down Oliveira whenever, and then she was able to take her down and get the submission in the third. So perfect performance from Stephanie Luciano as she gets her bounce back win after losing to a very close decision to Sam Hughes earlier in her career. Moving on. I don't know how Jacob from We Want Picks continues to do it. I know I shout him out like every single freaking episode at this point. Jacob keeps on doing it. Jordan Santos picks up the win over Danny Barlow. I thought there was no way Jordan Santos was going to win this fight, but somehow, some way, he found a way to win it. Danny Barlow, I thought, was going to be able to get that quick knockout because Jordan Santos seemed to be a very patient fighter, but Barlow was not landing anything. He was throwing such sloppy punches, which I knew going into it he threw very sloppy, but I just didn't think that Jordan was going to be able to, dodge out of the way for any of these strikes, but Barlow just has horrible accuracy on the feet. So Jordan was able to throw. Once Barlow was done throwing his chaotic overhands and his hook shots that he kept on missing, so Santos was able to take over with volume instead of trying to throw those powerful strikes. There was a moment where it looked like Barlow might get the knockout, but Santos just responded with more volume. So Jordan Santos pulls off another upset, and we started off the card 1-3. So it was not a good start at all. And that's how most people's were, though, because most people weren't picking Yusri Belgaruri or Jordan Santos. So a lot of people started off either 2-2 or 1-3. So it was a very rough start for people. Moving up, this was a very good pick for me. I predicted this one right. Bruno Silva was the underdog against Hyung Sung Park, and we picked Bruno Silva to win. Um, I know MMA Guru mentioned that it looked like Hyung Sung Park broke his jaw in the first round, which it would make sense because Park did have his mouth open for the rest of the fight, and that really just stopped any good from happening for Park. But Bruno Silva looked phenomenal in this fight. He's been in wars against way better competition than Hyung Sung Park, and Park has no good quality wins in the UFC yet, so I was not going to pick him in this fight. I thought it was way too early for him to be fighting a guy like Bruno Silva, who's been in those wars, who's very technical, who has power in the hands, who has great takedowns, great takedown defense, and he showed it in this fight. Honestly, Park had very few moments in this fight. It felt like Bruno Silva dominated this fight because on the ground, Bruno Silva was able to take him down repeatedly. I think he landed 3 takedowns in this fight. He dropped Park in the third round and then was able to get the submission after, but just a very good performance from Bruno Silva. Way to bounce back after a 2-fight losing streak. It was the killers though, so it's a good way for him to bounce back, and we'll probably see him get a little step up in competition after fighting Prospect. But they're gonna need to give Park a very big drop off an opponent. But we'll talk about who Bruno Silva fights next. Predicted after this, because I got a good matchup for him after this fight. Moving up, it's unfortunate. We were going to talk to Cody Gibson after this win, but unfortunately he did not win. And Aori Klang got the first round knockout in, I believe, 21 seconds. He just got caught. I mean, there's nothing really you can say. He just got caught with a clean shot. It was a clean right hand, I'm pretty sure, but it's so unfortunate because Cody Gibson was the way better all-around fighter. Klang just has knockout power, and it was a good bounce back for him after losing to Raul Rosas Jr. So big win for Ori Klang. He won performance of the night, but the podcast did not give him that, even though he probably deserved it. But it's unfortunate because I was really looking forward to talking to Cody Gibson, but it's gonna be hard. I'm gonna give him some time, and then maybe we'll set up something in the future. But moving up, it was the final fight on the prelims. Kyle Prepperlek went up against Drew Dober, and Drew Dober was able to win this one in the third round by knockout. This one was really interesting. The refs also sucked this entire card. That has been a big thing, a big takeaway, if you will, from this Vancouver card, which has had a lot of people saying that we should never go back to Canada. The crowd was great. But yeah, I don't know what was going on with the refs because so Drew Dober hits Prepelek with a nut shot in the third round. It was a very close fight. I probably had it 1-1. I thought Dober won the first round and then Prepelek won the second round. Um, Dober landed a lot of good, hard shots on Prepelek in the first round, but then it looked like he slowed down a little and Prepelek was landing more volume in the second. So could have been 1-1 or 2-0 for Dober, but I had it 1-1 going into the third. So very close fight. And then they take a point, not right away after the nut shot in the third round. They wait 4 minutes and they wait to see Prepelek's reaction to the nut shot. And they're like, oh, it took him 4 minutes to recover. We're taking a point. That makes no sense to me. If that's the case, then everyone that gets hit by nut shot, even if they're fine after the first minute, they're just gonna hold out and they're gonna wait extra minutes to see if they'll take a point. And we'll get into that later with Kevin Holland because Kevin Holland does the exact same thing later on in the card. But Prepelek waited it out, and then they ended up taking a point from Drew Dober. So Dober just poured everything on after getting the point deduction and was able to find the knockout. He put everything out there without worrying about his gas tank because it was already in the third round anyway. So he knew he needed the knockout after getting the point taken. So good win for Drew Dober. Way to go out there and get the finish after getting that point deducted. And it's a big win for him because if he lost his fight, he would have lost 4 of his last 5, and it would not been a good look for him. But thankfully, he was able to get the win. And Kyle Prepelek continues to show that he is not the prospect that Canada thought he was. So Drew Dober with a big win to cap off the prelims. To start off the main card, we saw Kyle Nelson beat Matt Favola. A lot of people had Matt Favola getting the knockout in the first. I did. Kyle Nelson proved me wrong, and I'm kind of glad. Like I said in my predictions episode a few days ago, I wanted Kyle Nelson to win because I talked to him before his fight, and he surprised me. He's normally been a conservative striker who only starts pouring it on when he gets in trouble, but he put it on fairly early in this fight. Favola was trying to throw these crazy shots, kind of like Daly Barlow. They weren't landing, and it was just very unfortunate for Favola. He threw everything in that first round, and then he just gassed out. But there's also controversy in this fight from the refs. Cal Nelson dropped Favola in the final 10 seconds of the round and landed ground and pound until 3 seconds left, and then the ref pulled Cal Nelson off with 3 seconds left. So Cal Nelson thought he won the fight, but then Dan Murgiata comes up to him and he's like, wait, the fight's not done. That was the end of the round. So Dan stopped the round way too early. He said he heard the horn, but I have no clue how. The fans started chanting, ref, you suck, and F you ref. Um, and then they booed him. He had another fight that he was reffing later on in this card, and they started booing when they said who the ref was. So that was hilarious. But you gotta get better at your job, Dan. Like, you've normally been you've been one of the better refs in history, but recently it was not a good look for you this card. But thankfully, Kyle Nelson didn't get screwed after they said that he didn't end up finishing the fight. Thankfully, Kyle Nelson still was able to get the unanimous decision. Favola was just gassed the entire fight after that first round, and it looked like Favola was kind of coming back in the second round for a little bit because he got a pretty good break at the end of the round after almost getting knocked out. Well, he did get knocked out, but he got a nice break, so he recovered a little bit in the start of the second. So it looked like he was going to come on and maybe get a knockout, but then Nelson was able to weather the storm, and he was able to throw more volume towards the end of the second, so he might have even won the second too. And then he clearly won the third. Favola threw like nothing. So Nelson won a very unanimous decision, and it was very obvious, and big win for him in Canada. Canada actually did pretty good on this card, so that was the big thing here. We did not think that Canada fighters were going to be able to beat some of these guys from different countries in their hometown, but they did. So props to them. But Kyle Nelson gets the win over Matt Favola, which is a huge win for Nelson, moving down to lightweight. Because I believe this was his lightweight debut. Moving up, Charles Jourdain, in his bantamweight debut, he moved down to bantamweight. He was originally in featherweight, then he moved down to bantamweight. He gets a first round finish over David Grant. He won Performance of the Night from the UFC, and for good reason too. David Grant was debatably should have been 5-0 going into this fight in his last 5. Obviously, the Daniel Marcos fight, he debatably should have won, but they counted a split decision loss. So he's 4-1 going into this fight, not being finished by anyone. And then Charles Jourdain just goes out there, uses his range to land these hard kicks on David Grant. Grant couldn't get in close like he normally does because David Grant has this boxing English style where he bobs his head, has his hands up, and he bobs and weaves to get on the inside. But Charles Jourdain was doing very good of keeping the distance and landing very powerful shots on the outside. So Grant was not able to land anything on Jourdain, and Jourdain hit him with a very vicious knee that dropped Grant, and then Jourdain landed ground and pound for the finish. Or no, excuse me. He dropped him with a knee, and then I believe he jumped on him and was able to lock in the guillotine because his coach screamed guillotine after he landed the knee. It was perfect positioning for Jourdain. Jourdain knew he locked it in because he stuck his tongue out after he locked it in, and then Grant tapped. So, huge performance for Charles Jourdain, another Canadian winning on this card, and thankfully we predicted this fight right. I'm pretty sure we did pretty good on the main card. So we went 0-1, 1-1, 2-1, 2-2, 3-2. We went, oh no, I guess we only went 3-3. Probably should have went 4-2, but we'll get into that later, excuse me. But moving up, Manon Fiorot went up against Jasmine Jesu Devicious, and Fiorot, we gave her Performance of the Night. She got the first round finish over Jasmine, and she is really showing that she deserves another title shot. I wouldn't give it to her right away just because she just lost to Valentina her last fight before this, but Fiorot just landed a clean left straight, and it just rocked Jasmine. Jasmine's legs went to jelly and started doing the little dance that they do when their legs start giving out, and Fiorot was able to throw her down, and then she just landed ground and pound for the finish. But a very quick finish for Manon Fiorot against a very big Canadian prospect in Jasmine. Jasmine was ranked 5 at this time, but now she's going to fall a little bit. And Manon Fiorot is looking like she's going to fight for another title contention. So she's probably going to be in a number 1 contenders fight in her next fight. I would not be surprised because that was a perfect performance for her, and that's who we decided to give Performance of the Night. Don't really know why she didn't get it from the UFC. She beat a top 5 ranked opponent in the first round. I don't know how that didn't deserve it over. I'm sorry, but she deserved it over Ori Kalang. I know he got a 21-second knockout, but still. Moving up, this is the fight where I thought we might have. It was such a close fight, but it was a very good fight nonetheless. Marlon Chito Vera lost to Ayman Zahabi by split decision. I gave this fight of the night. Some people picked Drew Dober and Kyle Prepolek, but I didn't like the stoppage at the end of the third. Um, and I really loved Chito Vera and Ayman Zahabi's stare down at the end of the second round. It was 1-1 going into the third, debatably, and Chito Vera and Zahabi stared each other down at the end of the round, and the ref had to separate them. So that was an awesome sight. He's kind of been becoming this hothead recently, which I'm not surprised because now he's on the 3-fight losing streak, which is unfortunate. But his fans have been telling him for his last 3 fights that probably his last 2. After the Sean O'Malley fight, everyone started telling him he needs to start throwing more. He throws way too little volume, and that's why he's not winning these fights. And that's exactly what happened in this. Zahabi only won because he threw more strikes. Vera was doing the damage, and it was very obvious that Vera did more damage in this fight. But since Zahabi threw more and landed more, that's why they gave it to him. I think it was 81 significant strikes for Zahabi and like 56 for Vera. But in terms of damage, Vera definitely won it. Vera knocked him down in the second, hit him with very hard shots throughout the entire fight. It's just he would very little follow up with those powerful shots. He would just kind of sit on the outside even after hitting him with a very clean shot. And what really annoyed me was in that second round when he knocked him down, Vera did not try and pour it on. Vera just still was very conservative after knocking him down. He didn't even try and go for the finish. It was so frustrating to me because first round was definitely Zahabi because Vera didn't throw a whole lot. Second round, you give it to Vera because of the knockdown and the stand-up was very close. And then third round was a toss-up, but you probably give it to Zahabi because of the volume. But Vera landed more damage in that round as well. So very close fight. I probably would still give it to Zahabi. Some people call it a robbery, but I'm one of those people where if it's a close fight, you don't call it a robbery. So Zahabi gets a split decision win. So he's beaten 2 legends back to back by split decision. First Jose Aldo, now Chito Vera. And I think it's time for him to get a step up to see if he's really good or not because he debatably lost to Jose Aldo and Chito Vera. But unfortunate for Chito Vera, they're probably going to give him a huge step down. I don't really know off the top of my head who they would give him, but I think they'll give him a huge step down after losing 3 straight. And then Zahabi will probably get a step up because he's now undefeated in the UFC at 5-0. But huge win for Zahabi in his career and winning in front of his Canadian crowd. It was kind of unfortunate for him, though, because the crowd actually was cheering for Chito Vera in the beginning. But good thing for Zahabi is they started cheering for him in the end. So he kind of switched the crowd over in his favor. The crowd was very entertained for this fight. So that's why I also gave it fight of the night because it was the most entertained the crowd was. Moving on to the co-main, Kevin Holland went up against Mike Malott, and Mike Malott won by unanimous decision, 30-27. This was an easy pick here, but it was kind of an unfortunate result. Kevin Holland got low blowed twice in the first round. This was the fight that Dan Murgliata refed. Mike Malott hit Kevin Holland with 2 low blows. In it was like a 2-minute span in the first round. Really shocked that Dan didn't take a point, but I think it's because that Canadians were already so angry at Dan for what happened with Kyle Nelson. So I think he really didn't want to take a point to make them hate him even more, but he decided to not take a point. Kevin Holland, it was 5 minutes after the second low blow. They gave him 5 minutes of rest time, and he originally, it seemed like he was not going to continue. But then he's like, all right, whatever, I'll continue fighting. So, give respect to Holland. Holland continued fighting. Every now and then after he'd walk around the cage, he'd have to grab his groin and he'd be like, fuck, because you could tell it was aggravating him. But the reason I think it's controversial is because I genuinely think since Dan didn't take a point at the beginning of the second low blow, I genuinely think Kevin Holland was waiting it out because it did not seem like it hit that much of the groin. It looked like it kind of hit the upper part of it. So that's what most people were saying. That's what Mike Malott was saying or trying to say to the ref to get him to start the fight back up. But regardless, it did hit him, even if it was slightly. So Kevin Holland was doing that the entire fight, and you could tell he was not throwing anything and he was not moving. It's still a good performance by Mike Malott, but Kevin Holland wasn't throwing anything, so you kind of question how Mike Malott didn't get the finish. He did rock Holland a few times in the fight, but he couldn't drop him somehow. So even though Kevin Holland did not look the same, it's still a good win for Mike Malott, and Mike Malott should be 15th ranked um, once they update the rankings. So Mike Malott will be ranked, and he'll probably get a big step up in competition because I believe he's on a 3-fight win streak now after losing Neil Magny, or it's 2. No, it's 3. Yeah, because he beat Trevin Giles, he beat Dylan Radke, and then he just beat Kevin Holland. So he's on 3-fight win streak after losing to Neil Magny. So I think it's time for them to give him a step up in competition because he just beat his first ranked opponent. And now, the main event, the biggest shocker of the night, our lock of the week, Rainer de Ritter, quit on the stool. Not really quit because, well, actually, no, I will say he quit. His his team manager, or his cornerman, his coach, you will, his coach released a statement saying that he threw in the towel because he wanted to save RDR to fight on another day. But RDR did not get off the stool regardless. It's not like the coach told him to sit back down. RDR never got off the stool in the first place, so RDR did quit in this fight. But huge props to Brendan Allen. First round, I would give to RDR. RDR brought him down like he does in all of his fights, and he got in the clinch like he wanted to. But Brendan Allen showed that he was way stronger than RDR. Brendan Allen was able to reverse the clinch situations and force RDR against the cage, and it was very impressive. The second round started with RDR taking down Brendan Allen again, but then Brendan Allen was able to reverse it very beautifully. I think Bilal Muhammad is doing very well coaching Brendan Allen, and I think it's going to make a huge difference for Allen in his career. I think he's actually become a prospect now and a contender, or he was a prospect. Now he's a full-on contender at this point because he was able to reverse a body lock. He was stuck in a body lock um, where RDR had his back, and then Brendan Allen was able to reverse it. He literally just twisted around in the body lock somehow, and Brendan Allen was able to get top position at the end of the second and land some nasty shots to RDR, which really started wearing on RDR the rest of the fight. Because then it slowly took a while for RDR to get up. He laid on the ground for a little before actually getting up. Then, third round, Brendan Allen was shooting the takedowns and taking top position and destroying him. Um, this fight was mainly on the ground. It went 4 rounds, but it was mainly fought on the ground. The striking obviously was in favor of Brendan Allen. RDR threw like barely any strikes the entire fight, but Allen started taking him down in the third round because he started noticing that RDR was gassed, and then just dominated that round with more ground and pound. RDR took like 5 seconds to get up off the ground after the round, and the ref even asked him, he's like, if you don't get up, I'm gonna call it. So RDR eventually gets up. Started the fourth round, exact same thing. Except this time, Brendan Allen kind of just sits on him. He doesn't really do a whole lot. I think he threatens a submission in the fourth round, but doesn't really get it in. But Brendan Allen dominates the fourth round, and Brendan Allen was probably up 3-1 going into the fifth round. But yeah, this is when it happened. Same thing happens. RDR lays on the ground for a while, and the ref says, I'm going to call it if you don't get up. RDR finally gets up. RDR goes to the stool, and then after the minute's up, RDR just sits there, and then the coach says, we're done. So the ref calls the fight. Fight's over. RDR quit, and Brendan Allen gets a huge upset win in Canada. He represented Canada here. He's originally from Louisiana, but half of his mother's side is Canadian, so he's fighting for the Canadians for this card, and a huge win for him. He's going to move up to top 5 in the rankings, and he's probably going to fight in a number 1 contenders fight here soon. So props to him. But if he wins his next fight, he'll probably be getting the title shot after Nasruddin Umaylov. So huge win for Brendan Allen, and a huge way to end the fight card for the Canadians. They went 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 3-1, 4-1, 5-1, 5-2. They went 6-2 on the card, so huge, huge thing for Canadians. I did not expect them to actually have a winning record. I think I went 2-6 against them actually, or maybe it was 3-5. But I did not have a good record for them, so that's why I ended up not doing so well in this card. But there's a few things that happened on this card that I didn't really expect. We didn't believe Croton was going to be good. Everyone picked Bakov to beat Belguri. Everyone thought Barlow was going to knock out Santos in the first round. I had a nice sleeper pick with Bruno Silva beating Park. A lot of people picked Gibson to beat Klang, but actually that fight was pretty split. I got Drew Dober right. Cal Nelson, I thought he was gonna get knocked out quickly. Jordan, we got right. Friot, we got right. Vera was such a close decision. We picked Mike Malott and then Brendan Allen with a huge upset. But overall, the card was absolutely phenomenal to watch. It was very entertaining. One of the better fight nights of the year for sure. But with that being said, we're going to talk about the main winners of this card and who they should fight next. Starting off with Brendan Allen. Like I said, he should be fighting in a number one contenders fight. And I'm going to give Brendan Allen Dricus Duplessis. You can make the argument that Dricus wins. It's not technically a number one contenders fight because you probably say that Dricus needs one more win if he beats Brendan Allen. But if Brendan Allen wins, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that he'll get a title shot next after beating RDR and then Dricus, who was a former champ. So give me Brendan Allen versus Dricus Duplessis. Brendan Allen has shown that he can stop ground game, and we know that Dricus has a very good ground game. It didn't look like that against Hamzat, but we know that Dricus is probably the second best grappler in this division. Maybe behind RDR. Maybe he's third, but we know that Dricus is a really good grappler. His stand-up's a little bit wonky and a little bit funky style, so maybe that could create problems for Brendan Allen. But honestly, I'd probably pick Brendan Allen in that fight. Bilal Muhammad has shown that he's a really good coach in this fight. I watched this interview about Bilal Muhammad and talked about the game plan he had for Allen after the fight. It was such a perfect game plan, and we've seen a huge improvement in Brendan Allen's grappling. So I might pick Brendan Allen to honestly win that fight against Dricus. So expect him to potentially get a title shot here soon because he's sleepily making his way up the rankings. He was just at rank number 9 a few weeks ago without even being in this fight. He took this fight on 3 weeks short notice. So that's just such a huge underdog win for Brendan Allen. But I'd give him Dricus Duplessis in a number one contenders fight. Moving on, Mike Malott, winning very unanimously against Kevin Holland, but that was pretty obvious that he was going to do it after the 2 groin shots. So still a good win for Mike Malott, and I want to give him a step up. Like I said, this fighter needs a step down. He's lost a few in a row now, and he's been fighting nonstop prospects, but I'm going to give him Mike Malott just because I think that grappling advantage would go to him. Well, actually, I don't know. Mike Malott's never mind. I forgot that Mike Malott used to be a coach for grappling, so never mind. I forgot how good submissions are for Mike Malott, so this might be a very bad matchup for him. They both have very similar styles, though. Give me Jeff Neal versus Mike Malott. Jeff Neal, I believe, is like 10 ranked right now, 10 or 12. He's around that range, but that'd be a good fight for Mike Malott to rise up in the rankings. You get Mike Malott up to number 10 spot if he beats Jeff Neal in convincing fashion, which I think he would, honestly. I think Jeff Neal's on his way out, unfortunately. Love the dude, but it would be a very hard thing to watch Jeff Neal go up against Mike Malott. I think Mike Malott would probably sleep him in the first round. It'd be rough because Jeff Neal doesn't move as quickly as he used to. He still has power in his hands, just like Mike Malott, but Mike Malott's so much quicker than him now. And grappling, I feel like Malott would be able to find the submission if they try and take it to the ground. But I think that's a good step up for Mike Malott after winning 3 straight. And I think it's a decent step down for Jeff Neal. I think it's his worst opponent he's fought in a while, which kind of shows you how great Jeff Neal's resume is in terms of fighters he's fought. So that's why I give Mike Malott. Moving down the card, Eamon Zahabi getting his split decision over Chito Vera. I'm going to give him the step up he deserves. He's 5-0 in the UFC. He's now going to be like number 7th ranked. I think he'll just take Chito Vera's ranking. So Zahabi's going to be 7th ranked. Give him Corey Sandhagen. Corey Sandhagen's going to need a step down opponent after getting dominated by Merab. So give me Zahabi versus Corey Sandhagen. Sandhagen's kickboxing style going up against Zahabi's kickboxing style as well would be a very entertaining fight. You can make that the main event of a fight night. And it's a good step up for Zahabi, and it's a good bounce back win potentially for Corey Sandhagen. I'd probably pick Corey Sandhagen to win that fight because Corey Sandhagen actually throws volume and he can out pressure Zahabi. I think Zahabi did show that he can actually throw volume now, which is good because I originally went in this fight thinking he was not going to throw a lot of volume. So good thing that he showed it here because that gives him a better chance against a guy like Corey Sandhagen, but I still think Sandhagen would be able to piece him up pretty easily and win a very convincing decision. Moving down, Manon Fiorot. She just beat Jasmine in the first round and made a big statement. Give her Natalia Silva. Natalia Silva's undefeated in the UFC, and I believe she's number 3 ranked. She's right behind Manon Fiorot in the rankings. So give me Manon Fiorot versus Natalia Silva, a number 1 contenders fight, because then either Natalia Silva will stay undefeated and be at the top of the division, or Manon Fiorot will be on a 2-fight win streak after losing the belt the first time. So she'll make a case to become the next shot for the title. But probably pick Manon Fiorot on that. She just looks so good everywhere. Like, she stops everyone's takedowns, and her kickboxing is so elite that I don't see a way where Natalia Silva just makes a way to get around that. So give me Manon Fiorot to win that hypothetical matchup, but I think that's the obvious decision to make here. So give me Manon Fiorot versus Natalia Silva. Moving down, Charles Jourdain gets his first round submission win over David Grant after hitting him with a jumping knee and then locking in the guillotine. Give me Charles Jourdain versus Marcus McGee. He called out Marcus McGee. He said he wanted to jump into the rankings. I'm all for it, honestly. He proved that he's a lot better at bantamweight in this fight because David Grant is probably one of Charles Jourdain's best wins of his career. And honestly, yeah, I would say it's his best win. So give Charles Jourdain the jump up. He's on a very high horse right now. His brother just got signed to the UFC, and he's coming off a big win in his home country. I'd give him Marcus McGee. Marcus McGee needs to step down after getting dominated by Peter Yan, technically. It's not like he got destroyed, the damage, but technically Peter Yan just dominated him that entire fight with the ground and on the striking. So give Marcus McGee a step down. I think they kind of rushed him into the rankings too early. So give him a fighter like Charles Jourdain, who's a very hard fighter to put away. And I think Jourdain deserves the step up as well. So give me Charles Jourdain versus Marcus McGee. Finally, the final fight we're going to talk on the main card is Kyle Nelson. Give me Kyle Nelson versus Jakar Kloss. Jakar Kloss just beat Edson Barboza, unfortunately, but Barboza and Nelson are both looking to get into the rankings, and I think whoever wins this could get a shot at the lightweight rankings. I know Nelson just had his lightweight debut, so that's why I didn't want to give him a ranked fighter just yet, because he beat Matt Favola, who looks like he's really just has punching power at this point. So give me Kyle Nelson versus Jakar Kloss. Both of them will be on win streaks. Whoever wins that fight, and then they can make a case for being next up in line to try and rise up in the lightweight rankings. But I'd probably, honestly, go with Jakar Kloss. I'm sorry, Kyle Nelson, but Jakar Kloss's performance over Edson Barboza was really good because Edson Barboza is still very dangerous at this point in time. But so is Matt Favola. So I don't know. It would be a very entertaining fight, and it would be pretty close. It'd probably be a split decision or 29-28 unanimous decision. Drew Dober got his finish over Kyle Prepolek. Give me Drew Dober versus Diego Ferreira. Drew Dober's at this point where we just need to see him in wars, and him versus Diego Ferreira would be an absolutely very entertaining matchup. Diego Ferreira is a very fun, powerful puncher that's just got to walk forward the entire time. Drew Dober does the exact same thing. So put the two old heads together. Let's see who comes out of that fight. I'd probably pick Drew Dober just because Diego Ferreira did not look good in his last fight to Alexander Hernandez at all. So give me Drew Dober versus Diego Ferreira. I think that's the next matchup to make. Let's get Drew Dober a couple wins before we throw him in against the next prospect, because I'm tired of seeing Dober getting knocked out to all these freaking amazing prospects. Moving down on the card, Ori Klein. Give me Ori Klein versus Cody Garbrandt. I've seen this from multiple people saying that this should be the next fight for Klein, and I think it's a good thing. Cody Garbrandt needs a step down opponent after losing to Raoni Barcelos. And Ori Klein deserves a step up after beating Cody Gibson. Klein's only been losing to very good grapplers, so let's put Ori Klein against a guy like Cody Garbrandt, who's a very good boxer. So, be a close fight, but I don't know. I just have not seen anything good from Cody Garbrandt lately, and he's only been beating the worst of the worst. So, probably pick Ori Klein to get like a second round knockout, unfortunately. But really hope Cody Garbrandt, if he gets this fight, I really hope he can knock out Ori Klein. Moving down, Bruno Silva gets the underdog win against Hong Sung Park. And I want to give him a little step up here. I think he deserves it. After beating a prospect, they just fed him to a prospect and he ended up winning. So let's give him a little step up. The other fighter, the fighter that I think he should fight, just be a prospect who has shown that he's not as good either. And Tim Elliott. Tim Elliott just beat Kaya Sakura. So give me Bruno Silva versus Tim Elliott. They're both getting older. They both have lost a lot of fights recently. So let's see which one kind of still has it in the tank. I'd probably give it to Tim Elliott just because his style is so unique and so like hard to figure out. But at the same time, Bruno Silva's a tough freaking fighter. So it'd be a very entertaining fight because so is Tim Elliott. He's also a very tough fighter. And it would be a very fun fight to watch because Bruno Silva also has a very nice style where he bounces back and forth. So giving Bruno Silva versus Tim Elliott, I think it's a very fun flyweight ranking matchup because that'd be number 14 and number 10. That could be a nice like prelim main event on a pay-per-view fight. Um, I think we have what two? Yeah, we have two left. Stephanie Luciano getting her very dominant win over Ravena Oliveira. I just gave her a little step up here. Nothing too crazy because Luciano did lose to Sam Hughes, who is not ranked yet. So she's on a one-fight win streak after beating Oliveira. And I gave her Bruna Brazil. Bruna Brazil is 3-3 in the UFC, and she probably needs a little step down, but also someone that will push her. And Stephanie Luciano will definitely push Bruna Brazil. Luciano is very balanced, so it'll push Brazil to be good on every single level of the fight game. And I don't really. I'd probably give it to Luciano. Brazil hasn't been what we thought she was going to be coming into the UFC, so give me Stephanie Luciano to win that hypothetical matchup. And then finally, Yuzuri Belgarui getting his upset win over Asmat Bakov, which shocked us. Belgarui, that kickboxer that's shown that he can be aggressive. Give him Marc-Andre Barriault. I think that's a good step up for him. If he beats Barriault, then you can give him a ranked opponent, but I don't want to rush him into the rankings just yet because Bakov could have just been this fake prospect. So give Belgarui a guy like Marc-Andre Barriault, who's shown time and time again that he could brawl with anyone. So give me Yuzuri Belgarui, and I think he knocks out Marc-Andre Barriault probably the end of the first round. So I'll believe in the hype. After watching him do what he did to Bakov, I'm going to believe in the hype, but it just depends on what the matchup is. If it's a grappling matchup, then I'm probably not going to go with Belgarui. But that's what I'm going to give user Belgarui. And that's going to cap off this recap of UFC Vancouver. We have got UFC 321 coming up this weekend. Very excited. Unfortunately, it starts at like 10 in the morning, which is unfortunate, but it's going to be a very entertaining card. Tom Aspinall versus Cyril Gahn. Tom Aspinall better win. But with that being said, I want to thank you guys for listening to this episode. I appreciate anyone who took their time out of their day to listen to it. And we'll see you guys next time for my predictions for UFC 321.